Mhm. Okay, yes. Welcome everybody to today's Empowered Women's Coaching Call. My name is Kira Love and I have
Brett Williams.
Brett Williams, literally in the house. Welcome to my office.
I know,
home.
and I've got the pink chair.
Pink chair. I thought you'd appreciate the pink chair.
Absolutely, absolutely. I said I'm comfortable with it, so I'm good with it.
So we are talking about one of our favourite topics today, which is conscious relationships.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's such a fun topic. There's just, every time we chat, it's like there's so many directions this conversation could take. We're not really sure where it's going to go today.
No, absolutely. Like we were sitting here before and trying to pencil out a few ideas because not so much that we didn't have ideas as to what to talk about, but more about like, let's see how we, exactly. How can we focus this conversation in and make sure that we give you all the value that we can. So we'll see where it goes, because I'm sure that this list is not going to be the only thing we talk about.
We're going to go sideways.
We'll probably start with something and then go completely different direction. So who knows? So
if you want to let us know in the comments if you have any questions that come up, and we'll keep an eye out on those. But before we get started, as always, the housekeeping, I'm going to pop into the comments where you can join our groups, where you can just hang out with us and, you know,
Absolutely.
keep in touch with the information that we're putting out. Also, past recordings on my YouTube channel. The other thing I want to do, when you're chatting, I'm going to have to find someone because I forgot to check. But I did promise that I was going to give a copy of this book away today to someone who shared the last week's mind blank. Obviously, I need another copy. Last week's session with Meg, it's actually had the most views so far in any session we've done. So this book, it's absolutely amazing and really on point for our topic today as well. So by the end, I will let you guys know who the winner of that book is. So conscious relationships. Maybe I feel like we could just start with like what it means to you. What the hell is a conscious relationship? All the talk right now.
It is, and maybe to some degree it's a bit of a buzzword.
Yeah.
But when I think conscious relationship, I think really understanding yourself and going into any relationship, whether it's the intimate relationships, friends, family, obviously Christmas coming up and, you know, you're going to be around family that may be triggering you for past things, but really about understanding your own stuff. Yeah. And I think that's really, really where it starts. It's the conscious relationship with yourself.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad you said that.
And then when you've got that conscious relationship with yourself, then you can invite others into a conscious relationship with you.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Because you you are in relationship with yourself first and foremost.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's where that's so powerful. Honestly, that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned over the past few years, is that the disconnect I was experiencing in my relationships started with my disconnect with myself and not having that self-acceptance.
Yep.
And love for myself first and foremost. Yep. Yeah.
I put up a quote post on the Life with Options Instagram page today about, you say you want that healthy relationship, but then you drop your standards on the next guy that shows you attention.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think
it's true, ladies. You're guilty.
Yeah, and I think it really does come back to like that conscious relationship with yourself. Like, what do you value? What do you want? And also, not so much that, but you know, understanding. Gosh, so many different thoughts going through my head. But the thing that I want to say is really focusing on like, where are you coming from? I was having a conversation with another lady in the last couple of days of like giving everything in the first date. And it's like, why? Why are you giving everything? Like, I'm a cook, I'm this, I'm that. You know, why are you putting all of that on the table?
I say to women, no
do
offense.
Get into it. No offense taken. And may walk out of the room.
We've got the goods. Men need to sell themselves to us. Like, you're the sales. Like, you don't need to be the salesperson. Like, you need to be grounded in who you are and what you offer, and know that within yourself. When I'm on a date, I'm like, mate, you can sell yourself to me. I know I'm awesome. You'll be lucky if you get a second date.
Absolutely. And look, I don't take any offense to that whatsoever. And I agree. And also, there's also the men that need to step into that space as well. And it's not, when you speak about that, it's not coming from ego. It's coming around like really that self-love, self-acceptance, and really knowing yourself.
Feel the same. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
We do have the goods though, just so.
Look, let's be honest, women rule the world. So
it's true.
That's fine.
Yeah. No, but when you lift your standards as a woman, look, let's be honest. There are certain needs that men have that are very high on their priorities list, right? And so men will raise the standard of their behavior if they're called to, because it's a high priority for them to get certain needs met, and vice versa, hopefully.
Absolutely.
But if we raise our standards first on how we feel about ourselves and how we show up and how we behave, that will collectively, I think, raise the standards on how men are showing up.
Absolutely. And at the same time, like around that conscious relationship side of things, it's also knowing when to give the space as well.
Yes.
Men will step up, but I promise you, so many men are probably going to be really, really slow at stepping up, or even really, really slow at getting the hints. Maybe there's women out there that are watching and their partner constantly sits on the couch or whatever it may be, and they're not getting those hints. But it's also having that conscious awareness as to where you're coming from when you're inviting him to step up or whatever it might be. You know, is it coming from that wounded inner child space, or is it coming from an investment in the relationship? And I think we spoke about it on the last one where it was like, you know, it's an investment in your relationship for you to soften in your feminine and allow the man to, or invite the man to step into his masculine.
Yeah.
And, you know,
because he needs to feel inspired to do so. Not nagged, not criticized, not pressured. No one wants to be nagged or pressured into anything. You want to feel inspired to.
Absolutely. And men just want to feel appreciated.
Yeah.
And so I actually did get a few comments after the last one where some of the women who watched it realized that they haven't been appreciating their man for what they've been doing. And they basically just got on the phone afterwards and was like, hey, look, I appreciate what you're doing. And I think that's
one of the biggest killers in a relationship of chemistry and love and all of those things is just coming from expectation. Constantly. Just constant expectation on the other person rather than appreciation.
Yeah. And so I guess that leads into like the other thing that we've got on here, or one of the other few things, from the dating side of things.
Yeah.
What is the expectation in a dating situation? Are you actually going in there with a preconceived idea as to what this is, and are you overlooking, you know, the things that he may be saying?
It's a big one. It's a big one. I think women are really guilty of this, is that they go into dating with an outcome in mind. And so not only are they not hearing what a man is offering and saying to them, they've already created a picture and a story of what they want, what they're looking for, what they're hoping for, rather than just going in with zero expectations, eyes and ears wide open to clearly see what's in front of them. Absolutely. And, you know, I've been having a lot of conversations with friends lately. I think prior to dating, you need to know exactly who you are, what you want your future to look like, how you want to show up in a relationship, and how you want to feel in a relationship. And if you're not clear on that vision, you're going to buy anything, right? You're going to buy into anything. But if you're clear on that vision, you can enjoy the company of a date, but clearly be able to go, you know what, quality person, really enjoyed your time, but actually we're not in alignment. Rather than going in wishing and hoping and then buying something that really isn't, doesn't really fit you.
No, and that comes back to the focus of today with the conscious relationship with yourself, you know, because it does take really knowing and having that deep connection with yourself to be able to say, hey, I don't see this going somewhere.
Yeah.
And being real instead of allowing the emotions or that deep desire for connection that may have just had you lower your standards of going, oh, he did that. You know, that's not so bad. That's a minor thing.
I can honestly say 10 years ago, I would have not enjoyed my own company and would have approached dating very unconsciously, more needing connection, I think. Whereas today, I actually love myself wholeheartedly and I love time with myself. In fact, I crave time by myself. And I filled my life with things that fill me with joy. So when I'm dating, finding someone is a bonus. It's a desire, but it's not a desperate need. And they're two very different energies, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that as well, it's okay to have that time to yourself as well. And I guess that's really, that conscious relationship as we're talking about, it's knowing that it's okay to say, hey, I just need the weekend to myself.
Yeah.
And in that conscious, intimate relationship, both parties understand the need for each individual to have that space.
Yeah.
And
it's so healthy.
Absolutely.
It's so healthy to have space. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you're not in that conscious relationship, well, then it's going to come from a place of, oh, why do you not want to spend time with me? Like, what does that mean about me? And that's really where it's coming back to.
Do you feel like, do men do that, or do you think that's a woman's trait of insecurity if a man needs time out? Does it happen on the other side as well?
The truth of it, I would say most men are probably celebrating the fact that their woman is saying, hey, I want to go spend time with the girls.
Yeah.
Because a man just wants to go and, muck aroround with his tools,
but
or
not
like
many women allow that space.
No.
That's what I'm saying. I think women are more guilty of controlling and taking it personally if a man just wants some space and time out.
Absolutely. And again, it's an investment in the relationship. And, the truth of the matter is, if the insecurity is coming back of, is he cheating, or is he going to cheat, or whatever it might be, because he wants to go and spend some time.
I say give him the space to do so if he's going to. Let's find out that shit sooner rather than
That's
later.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Why are you going to control an outcome that's inevitable? And that's where women are guilty. Stop trying to control your man. If that is who he is, let him show those colours.
Yeah.
Let him show if he's loyal or not. Give him the space and freedom to be him. So that you can, make sure that you have the right person in your life that's trustworthy.
Yep. And I think one of the questions that came through last time, and again, it all ties into the conscious relationship with self. It's like, yes, I trust myself, but I don't trust him. And that's not so much coming from... What are you doing
in a relationship with someone you don't trust then?
Well, exactly. But it's also the unspoken expectations of how they're going to show up. So again, it's a need for control. And it is a form of control, that I don't trust you because you didn't show up on time when you said you were going to, and all of this. Now, there are different energetic, chemical differences between men and women, from men in the masculine, well, more so not men and women, but masculine and feminine energy, where the feminine energy is really about in that moment. And it doesn't matter if the man's showing up on time, every single day, except for that once, she's just not going to see all of the other times, because it's all about what you did right now.
Yeah.
Versus...
Guilty.
Yeah. And look, it's fine. But it comes back to, it's the responsibility of both parties, man and woman, to understand that, to be able to not be clashing at each other, for the man coming home, knowing that that's where she is, and knowing where his woman is operating from, and being like, okay, that's fine, I get it. And not making a big deal about it, because he understands his stuff and she understands hers.
And that's, okay, so let's full circle just for a second back to what is a conscious relationship.
Yes.
That's what I was going to share. I think first and foremost, you hit the nail on the head. It starts with you and knowing yourself and being in good relationship with yourself. And then from there, I feel like most people enter a relationship and go, oh, there's great chemistry here, so this is going to be a great relationship. And then that's basically as far as their consciousness expands to, in terms of making it work.
Yeah.
And then when problems start to arise and you start arguing, and it's not all fun and games and honeymoon period anymore. It's everyone's just kind of crossing their fingers and hoping it works out.
Yep.
Whereas to me, a conscious relationship is two committed people to growth and expansion in the relationship. Consciously committed to growth and growing together. It's accepting each other's differences and seeing each other's light and darkness. And being accepting that is part of every human. You can't have these unrealistic expectations that your partner is only bringing happiness and joy and is on time every time and perfect in the bedroom every time, and just all of those expectations that we can have.
Absolutely.
So knowing that there is going to be both sides, I think that it's making a conscious effort to work on communication and challenges, and seeing each other clearly, hearing each other, seeing and hearing each other. Oh yeah, that's a big one for women. That's literally, that would be my deepest desire, I think, in terms of boys and values, would be to be seen and heard.
Yes.
I remember watching an Oprah Winfrey show, and this was a time in my life where I was having some relationship breakdowns. And she said, I'm going to try and remember the exact quote. Did you hear me? Did you see me? And did what I say, did you hear me? See or feel, I can't remember, but did what I say mean anything to you? And that just like hit me in the heart. Like, to have a man, and I think this is the masculine quality, like when you take away ego and all of those things, is a man that is just grounded and holding space and can just see and hear you, and what you say and how you're showing up means something.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
That always stayed with me, that.
Yeah. And I think it's more of a natural, innate trait for women to do that.
Yeah.
But again, coming back to what you had said,
that's what a conscious relationship is, a man to go, okay, I'm going to consciously work on this because that is an important value for you.
Yeah. Is actually hearing the words.
Yeah.
And taking away whatever meaning that you've had of those words from the past out of the equation, and just hearing those words from a place of curiosity of, what do you mean by those words?
Yeah. Because I think both partners are probably guilty of this, but when you're in communication with a partner and something's not working and you've got that trigger or that tension, you're not hearing and seeing necessarily where your partner's coming from. You're hearing with defensiveness. So you're responding with a defense rather than curiosity.
Absolutely. And then the other thought that comes to mind, coming back to like we were talking about, if there's any suspicion of like, is he faithful or is he not faithful? Well, then you're listening for those particular words that validate what you're saying, and you'll always find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But I think,
and the thing is, the challenge is it may not be happening right then, but if you do that for 5 years, sooner or later you're going to be right, probably, because you're going to create the exact, and then you're going to be like, I told you so. But actually, your habit over time probably created that scenario.
Well, because if you have that suspicion, then you're going to start to pull back, and he's going to feel that disconnection, and then all of a sudden he's going to go and find emotional or whatever attention from somewhere else, and then all of a sudden it may create that. Yeah. Because it's just driving a wedge between the two of you, and that's where it really does come back to like understanding yourself. And I think the other layer and maybe foundation to conscious relationship is knowing that you're okay. You enjoy their time, but you also know that you're okay without them. I
think that's what dating's been so easy for me this year, because I know that I'm fucking okay without someone. And so I would rather wait for the right person who brings so much joy and conscious connection. Like, I just have such a high value for that now. That being alone is okay until that comes along. Yeah.
And the thing in there is like, you can be okay with it, but you may not like it. Like, I've got the agreement with myself that I'm happy to be single for the rest of my life. Doesn't mean that that's what I want, but I'm okay with it. I have peace with that. And at the same time, it's then staying open for the right person to show up. And I think when it comes to the dating side of things and understanding who that right person is, I had this conversation again with somebody this week, and talking about, how do you know, and when it comes back to diving into a relationship, because ultimately what you're wanting is connection and all of that, and lowering your standards. One of the things that I do, I don't really speak about this too much, but after any interaction, I've done this for the last 6 or so years since my ex-fiance and I split up, because I realized, okay, I knew what the relationship was that I didn't want. And then I was sitting in that space of curiosity to go, okay, so what is the relationship that I do want? And what are the traits in her that I want to have? And so since then, whenever I've had coffee or caught up with a female friend, this is not me looking at it from a sexual perspective, but just looking at as two individuals. I'm like, okay, cool. What traits in her do I like? What traits do I not like? And playing out like a kind of like a role play in my mind, like how would that dynamic look in a relationship setting?
Conscious selection.
Absolutely. Because the thing is otherwise, if you're just going into a date and then that's the only, I guess, male interaction, or that you're looking at and going, okay, I didn't like that. You know, what are the other male friends, or even interaction with, say, somebody at the cafe or something like that? You might have had a conversation. It's like, okay, cool. What was the traits about him that I really enjoyed? What were the traits that I kind of felt like, oh, no, that wouldn't work for me? We can start to gather data on a very consistent basis to start to hone what it is that we're looking for, so that you know it when you find it. So
yeah, the other thing that I would add to that, because I have definitely clearly defined what it is that is important to me, and it's certainly not a list of he needs to look like this, and you know, it's not a long list of how he has to be. It's more a list of values that person would display. You know, health is important to me. I couldn't be with someone who didn't have that value, because it's just too conflicting. And it would bring my value of it down. But more importantly, the majority of what it is how it makes me feel and how it would cause me to show up. Because I've had relationships in the past that brought out the worst in me because of values conflict. And now I can consciously really see that. I can choose better based on someone's values and how that's going to bring out the best in me. Because I want to show up in my most feminine, flowing, happy, joyful self. And so it's going to be certain qualities that bring that out in me. And yeah, I think when you are more focused on how you want to be and how you're going to show up and who you are in a relationship, rather than writing a long list of this person must tick all these boxes, that's expectation.
And I guess like the way that I'm saying it is, it's like, it's trying on like a new belief. It's like, how does this fit for me? You know, is that something that would make me feel good? And bring out the best in me as well.
My coach at the beginning of the year, actually, when I first separated, said, look, just go on lots of different dates with different people and just actually find out who you are. Like, do you even know what you like? You know, because I'm not the same person as I was 12 years prior when I entered the relationship. And that was super helpful in the same thing. I was able just to sit back because there was no need, there was no desperation. It was more just sitting back and observing and trying things on and seeing what is it that I'm looking for now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole interesting world. Because I think that also, like, when you do that, it allows you to stand in your power. Because you're not jumping at the first guy who gives you attention. And
that's really unattractive to a man as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, that'll be the quickest thing to get away from. And nobody likes desperation. And that's fine. But at the same time, like, okay, let me take one step back. It will be attractive to the wrong guy.
Yes, true.
And if you're a woman who is consciously aware and craving a conscious relationship, then those guys that you're chasing after are going to be the wrong guys.
Well, I've found that it scares the wrong guys away that aren't ready for that as well, which is perfect.
Yeah, great.
As well. Like, if you're really in your power,
filters everything out.
That will filter guys out as well. And, you know, don't lower your standard to meet someone where they're at. You want someone to raise themselves to meet you or already be at that kind of level. And it's not coming from ego, or, you know, it's just being comfortable in yourself and not bending yourself to be what you think is going to fit their mold.
Yes. And just having a bit of a side thought when it comes to, you know, Christmas and family and that side of things as well. It's like also having that conscious relationship with yourself can be knowing when to stop talking. You know, when are you now entering into, I'm just saying this part of the sentence to try and validate myself in your world. Which is again in the dating side of things with chasing after the wrong guys. But obviously we're going into the Christmas period as well. And, you know, for many of us, we're going to be around family that we may be still trying to prove who we are to. You know, it's just knowing that, okay, this part of the conversation doesn't serve this situation because I'm actually lowering my standards and lowering my self-worth and everything like that. So therefore, I'm just going to say this part, that's the answer that they asked, and leave it at that. So it is really about that self-regulation in the moment, whether it is in that intimate relationships, whether it is, you know, all sorts. The taxi driver actually that I had came here with, he we were having that conversation, and I was saying that he's retired in his 60s, and was asking me where I was heading and what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think these days, because maybe we're so influenced or like impacted by all of the stimulus that we have on social media and everything like that, my assumption is, and also the vibration rising and everything like that, I'm not talking about that part just at the moment, but the fact that we have all of these things that are going on, I feel that it's almost wearing down our defenses or our boundaries or our energy resources to be able to self-regulate.
Yeah.
And in the way that maybe you did back in the day when you didn't have all of the social media and everything like that. So it's kind of easier back in his day. Whereas now, he's now starting to step into this self-awareness and understanding and conscious relationship with himself so that he can self-regulate. And I think we are now forced in some ways to actually be open to this.
Yeah.
Because if not, we're going to end up down in a deep, dark rabbit hole. And I know for myself, I've been down those places many a times, and it's not a fun place, but being able to know how to get yourself out of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because if I reflect on this year, it hasn't all been roses in relationship, in dating, in all of that. But the better I have a lot of, I'm very self-resourced in regulating and bringing myself back to balance. And so I don't spend a lot of time anymore down the rabbit holes. But yeah, and I think, whether you're in a relationship or whether you're dating or whether it's just Christmas time, when you realize that you are responsible for your own happiness, to be a self-ignited source of light. I don't need a man to bring light into my life. I'm self-ignited. My happiness is my responsibility. Not only does that release expectation and pressure on anyone around me, but it means that, you don't buy into, Auntie Flo who's questioning why you haven't had babies yet, or do you know what I mean? You just don't even need to engage. You don't need to engage certain scenarios. Even, like if you're dating and, one thing that blows my mind is the lack of boundaries and self-worth, where women will feel validated because they get a dick pic or because they get a, hey, thinking of you in that way message at 3 a.m. Like, do you really think you're that special? No, a lot of women. Yeah, right. For me, it is. For me, it's like, you're clearly that kind of man. Yeah. I wouldn't even waste my time. But I think a lot of women are so in need of validation because they're not validating themselves.
Absolutely.
So that dick pic or booty call, which is disguised with some nice words, is making them feel good about themselves rather than them see it for what it is. Like for me, I'm like, I'm not special because you sent, I would be a silly girl to think that I'm the only one that got that message. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And at the same time, it's also like having that self-compassion if you are a woman who feels that you are validated by that, or you get that little rush, where is that coming from a childhood perspective of like, what is your view of love? What is your view of how a man should treat you? What is your view of like that connection and things like that?
Because it does feel good. I mean, I'm conscious. Yeah. And there is that moment of like, oh, like that's nice to be desired for sure. Yeah. But then it's like, okay, I need to use my brain here. Like
exactly. And that's where I'm coming back to. It's like that when the unconscious child comes in play and now all of a sudden it's not okay, that's that guy. That's clearly a red flag. Yeah. Unless that's what you're into and whatever, that's cool. But if that's not, then, well, that's clearly a red flag. And if you're not, then going, okay, well, how many people did you send that to? Like, that's kind of not cool or whatever it might be. Well, then.
Well, it's just knowing that a man is coming from a very certain place, which is totally okay. Yeah. If that's the place that he's in. Just don't create stories in your head and turn it into something that it's definitely not and probably never going to be.
Stop envisioning walking down the aisle.
Yeah, exactly. It's not happening.
If a man says, I don't see a future with this, and I get it, maybe there's some
I'm not looking for a relationship right now. What are all the lines? Come on, Brad. What are all the lines that you deliver on a date that women are ignoring?
Well, and I have you know, yeah, okay, let's be a little bit vulnerable from this side. I'll share a little bit from my own side. It's a case of like, I am very straightforward up the front. Like I am like, look, I either see something with you or I don't see something. You know, this is just some fun, and that's what it is. And I have had situations where women have gone, that's cool, I understand that. And then I get it. Like, I know for myself.
They say that, but I know what they're really thinking. I'm going to be that superwoman who changes his mind.
Absolutely. And look, and I'll open it to the part of like, I get it. And sometimes this is for me to learn because you know, as I say, like, yes, I might be comfortable with being single for the rest of my life, but we all are human. We all desire connection. We all desire that feeling of being appreciated and stuff like that. And also to express that to another. And so whilst I know in the past, yes, I have said, this is not going to go anywhere, but I've allowed myself to be in the moment. And I have had feedback in the past of like, hey, there's mixed messages. I'm like, okay, cool. I get that. That's on me. But I know for myself, my word is what I'm actually saying. My actions are not where it's going to go. And so if you have a man who's saying, I don't see this as being anything, what I would suggest is to actually listen to those words and go into it going, okay, this is where he's at. Yes, sure. In the moments of the bedroom or maybe some other catch-ups and things like that, maybe you cuddle or like whatever it might be, that enjoy those as like the icing on the cake. Yeah. But don't use that as, okay, this is what it is. You know, we're going to get married.
I think the challenge for women, and I'm all about sexual empowerment and all of that, but I think if women are really honest with themselves, most women are looking for something more. Most women can't disconnect sexually from emotionally what they want. The two are usually tied together. And so although they might be saying the words of like, yeah, casual fun, blah, 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 in their hearts, it's actually not what they're looking for. And they're hoping, even if they're not admitting it to themselves, there's this underlying hope that maybe he'll change his mind. And that's a dangerous place for a woman to put herself in. And she needs to take responsibility of that. But I've coached a lot of women this year where, you know, within a week, they're almost in love with a man because they slept with him too soon. He was very clear in the beginning he wasn't looking for anything, but they've already formed this whole picture in their mind of this relationship. And at the end of the day, I'm like, babe, he could be a murderer. You've known him a week. You know, like, you don't know anything about this.
What do you mean?
Man.
We're moving in.
That's what like. Women are so guilty of creating stories and buying into a dream rather than seeing very clearly and hearing exactly what's in front of them. And I think for that reason, this is my personal opinion and my personal value, is jumping into bed with a man on day one, unless you really do feel like you can separate it and that's your thing, then all power to you. But I think for women, there's too many hormones involved and they can't see the man clearly anymore. Like they're seeing what they want to see, they're hearing what they want to hear. And I've even had conversations with women in hindsight who have said he did say that on the first date, but I didn't listen.
Interesting. And if a man's interested, he's going to tell you. Like, and okay, if he says that and then in a couple of weeks' time or a month's time or whatever it might be, he turns around and walks away, well then...
Well, things change. You get to know each other and
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even still, when a man says, hey, I'm interested in seeing where this is going, or I like you, again, don't go off the deep end and start to plan out the marriage, the honeymoon, or all this sort of thing. Just be like, okay, cool, interesting. Like, that's good to know.
I'm interested in seeing where this goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then if it continues, and I guess that conscious relationship, I can't think if it was a conversation with yourself before or it was another conversation I was having, but it really comes back to choosing each other on a daily basis. Like waking up and going, you know what, consciously, I choose to be with you. Because
I think love is a choice. I believe love is an action. It's not a feeling. Those feelings are chemistry and hormones and all of that. Love is actually a daily choice. And I think you can choose, and this is a good segue into the other topic we wanted to cover. I think that you choose to cultivate love in your relationship or not. You choose to cultivate passion in your relationship. I think 20 years in, you can still have incredible passion and chemistry if you're focused on cultivating it. But you have it. That's what a conscious relationship is. That stuff doesn't. You can't wing that. It's not just going to happen because you wing it. You know.
Otherwise, you just become two friends living under the same roof.
I mean, you might get lucky that you choose a partner who has the same love languages as you. So maybe some of it just naturally, you know, you chose right. And I would say relationships that do have a lot of love and that lasting bond over time, they did select, maybe not consciously, but they got lucky. For the most of us, it actually takes a conscious effort every day.
Yeah. And on that, before we move into the next part, there's just the two parts. If you are in that space, like the two things to really look into is your love language. And the book talks about like the way you receive love, but I also believe that we give love in maybe a different way.
Yeah, I've noticed that speaking to people actually. Yeah.
So look into what is your love language. And
I show love through acts of service, but it's not mine to receive.
Likewise.
Yeah, like I love to cook and serve the man. But that's not my love language.
Yeah. What is your love language?
It's gifts, but it's gift of thought. So it's not what big expensive thing can you buy me? It's did you take the time to leave me a love letter somewhere that I stumbled across? That's a greater gift to me because it takes more thought and effort.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And having that awareness and having that, being able to communicate the two. Like I agree, like my love language of giving is acts of service. And I realized my ex, that's not the way that she received it. And hence why I felt unappreciated in the relationship because I'm like, here's all of these things I'm doing for you. Whereas for me, receiving is more from a words of affirmation side of things. So understanding that for yourself. And then the next one to look into would be understanding masculine and feminine energy.
Yeah, let's get into that. This is so misunderstood. It's so important. The more that I understand about it, the more I can see myself clearly and what works for me and what doesn't in a relationship. Like I've really been able to understand more about myself, how I show up, what brings out the best in me, how I can bring out the best in a man. Yeah.
So where do you want to start?
So many. Well, maybe because it's not about female male.
No.
Whether you're in a same-sex relationship, a traditional relationship, this applies.
Absolutely. Masculine and feminine energy is all within yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it is a same-sex relationship, generally one party will have more masculine energy and the other one will have more feminine energy because we need that yin and yang. We need that.
And without it, you don't have sexual attraction. So you need, the greater the polarity, the greater the sexual attraction.
Absolutely.
And that's where long-term relationships go wrong, is often what happens is those lines get blurred where the woman is becoming controlling, maybe untrusting, maybe she's just working in a very masculine trait job. Maybe she's got kids to look after and she's in the doing rather than just the being and the flow. And so that's where a lot of the sexual chemistry begins to die down because you don't have that great polarity existing in the relationship anymore.
Absolutely.
Or maybe she's not trusting of the man, so she's having to step up because he's not.
Yeah, and the first thing that comes to mind there is that the man will go for the easiest, the path of least resistance. So if the woman is starting to become more controlling, if she is starting to do things more around the house and all of that, or whatever it might be, most men, I would probably say, are going to start to step back because, you know, maybe he doesn't feel safe to be able to express himself. And I don't know if we touched on it the last time, and I'll tie it into masculine and feminine energy as we're talking about, but it's obvious in society that most men, or men in general, struggle to express themselves. And it's evident that men and women process things differently. You know, I'm a very self-aware guy, but I still process things sometimes slower than a female friend of mine. And I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out back here, let alone you're already got the solution, all of this. It's coming back to giving your man that space to be able to understand for himself. And then when he expresses it, to be able to give him that space so that he doesn't feel judged. Because if in those first couple of moments when he is feeling as though it's not safe for me to express this and I can't say it anymore, the next time that you ask the question, he's going to start to shut down. And so what that's going to do in the relationship is that will start to have you as the woman step into your masculine energy more, because he's now starting to timidly sit back. And as a result of that, okay, maybe his masculine energy is weakening, maybe he's stepping into his feminine, whatever. It doesn't matter what's going on over there at the moment. But what's happening is, to him, he's saying it's unsafe for me to be able to express myself. And therefore, I'm just going to go for the path of least resistance, which is just say yes and not actually be truthful.
Yeah.
So that's going to start driving that wedge between the relationship.
We'll do that over 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. And then as a result of that, as said, he's going to start doing things less. So that's going to force you to step into your masculine more. And then all of a sudden
starts resenting each other more and more.
Absolutely. And starts to really drive a wedge between the relationship. And so how do you get the dynamics back? Might be the question that you're thinking of there. Is when it comes to the dynamics of men and women. Now, this is not a overstepping equality or anything like that. But at the same time, we're never born to be equal. We've both got our own strengths, and we're meant to be living in those strengths and as a complement to each other.
Yeah.
And that's where that conscious relationship is really seeing what is the strength of the woman, what is the strength of the man, and allowing each other and inviting each other to step into that.
And being conscious, like for me, I just, because I spent a lot of time reflecting on my previous relationship and just taking accountability for what I can, because it's all I can control. And yeah, I just have so much more awareness over these things. And, you know, even in dating, just really knowing what my place is. And it feels good to be in that place. It actually feels good to lean back as the woman and allow a man to step up, even though I could just make shit happen myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It actually feels good to let a man lead. It feels good to consciously cultivate that flowing feminine side of myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe before going on a date or before husband comes home, put on some music and just dance freely and do things that bring out your fun, soft, playful side.
And then that opens the other conversations going on in the background there. Why should I do that? Why doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's not about either party. It's about
someone has to go first. And
Absolutely.
what it is, for me, it's like, if you want to have an amazing relationship, you can only control you.
Yes.
And even if the relationship does break down, you want to be able to leave knowing that you showed up your best.
Absolutely.
That you played full out.
Yep.
So play full out, regardless of what that person's doing. And I believe that if you're with the right person, it will inspire them to step up.
Yep. Absolutely. It's, taking that ownership and knowing what you want. It doesn't matter if it's a relationship intimately, but a relationship with anybody, or even an interaction at the cafe. Yeah. We condition how other people show up.
If you want more love, bring love.
Exactly.
If you want more joy, you bring the joy. If you want better communication, you show up.
Yep. Don't sit there.
If you want more gifts, start buying more gifts. If you want more words of appreciation, you know, like.
And coming to the dynamics of masculine and feminine energy, like one of the things that I've known for myself is that over the last year or two, I've really been asking myself, how does my masculine energy show up? Yeah. Because it's all very different. I can look at, a highly masculine, probably more egotistic male and go, oh, that's what masculinity is.
That's a confusion, actually. You can just clarify on that. A lot of men, what they think is masculine is actually ego. Yeah. So maybe how would you define the masculine energy when it's centered versus the feminine? Mm-hmm. How would you define those with some words?
Feminine is really the creativity part. Mm-hmm. It's, and that could be building a cabinet. It could be working on a car for a guy, or it could be, arts and crafts or something like that for a female. It's really just that, I would even say it's like the childlike state. Yeah. Because I'm just thinking about when I'm doing photography or anything like that. Like, to me, I would say that puts me in my feminine energy. Mm-hmm. Versus when it comes to the masculine energy, it's more around being very precise, being more specific. As we're having this conversation, I would say right now I'm sitting more in my masculine energy because I know that's where I need to deliver from right now, because it's a very precise and very intentional message. Yeah. Versus before, when we're kind of like joking and playing around, it's like more of the feminine energy. Yeah. And so it's really asking yourself, what's the time and the place of who I need to be, or how do I need to be right now? And there are times when, getting the kids to school or something like that, it's probably more of a masculine energy. Yeah. It's a little bit of that feminine part, but more so the masculine to me, getting everything precise and taking place. It's understanding it mid-conversation as well. Yeah. Check in with yourself. self-awareness and conscious relationship with yourself is the ability to be able to regulate yourself in the moment as you go through your day. That was amazing. I should probably have written that down. But it's true. It's one of the exercises that I have with the women that I work with and the men that I work with is starting to set reminders throughout the day to check in. Because it's so easy to lose track of where the moment took place that has you in the energetic state that you are in right now, the energetic and emotional state. And so maybe that was a time back in wherever it was, maybe you're in your masculine energy more, and because you're in that energetic state, you showed up in a particular way, and then now you're irritated and frustrated at the world because the world is now not, or your partner is now not showing up to love you and ravish you the way that your femininity and your woman instincts desire. So it's really about checking in on a constant basis. Like I invite you right now, what's going on for you right now? Like energetically scan your body. Like what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's going on for yourself right now? Are you sitting more in your masculine energy? Does that serve you? Are you sitting more in your feminine? Does that serve you? And there's no right or wrong answer to any of this. It's really about understanding yourself and challenging it and going, well, is this right? Is this how I want to be showing up?
Even maybe become aware of the times where you can feel your partner most attracted and drawn to you and your energy.
Perfect.
And what qualities and energy are you giving off in that moment?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because, you know, we all generally know what we don't want, but when we get into that happy state,
it's much more productive to know and focus on what you do want.
Yeah, totally. And it's about creating that roadmap as to how do I get back to being happy? Because I sure as heck know what makes me angry and sad and frustrated. But so if you're in that happy state, or the next time you're in that happy state, or maybe it was yesterday, or as you're saying, like when your partner was most interested and sexually just aroused by you, and you know
but chances are you're enjoying yourself, because this is not all about I need to show up this way for my man. You're actually first and foremost doing it for you.
Totally.
Because you want this beautiful chemistry in your relationship. It serves you too.
Yes.
But I like myself most.
Yep.
When I am in my feminine energy, when I'm surrendering and flowing and fun, and like that's when I enjoy myself. And I have daily rituals that help remind me, because life happens. Life is tricky some days, and it's hard to stay in that flow when there's so much shit that needs to get done. You know, part of my mission statement is reminding myself of cultivating, because they're all qualities that are a part of me. But it's being conscious that every day I'm going to continue to cultivate those ones more. And bring myself back to that alignment. You know, when I read my mission statement in the morning and there's things around cultivating those parts of myself, it just reminds me, okay, maybe I got a bit off track yesterday because it was all about doing. But today I'm going to consciously have just a little bit more being, you know, put the music on with my girls in the morning and dance around and be silly and just do things that bring out that best side. But one thing I wanted to touch on as we're talking about this for women, and maybe you can counter it with where men lose themselves in a relationship, but and I've experienced this too, I think women, especially when we have kids, I think kids are the biggest challenge when it comes to a relationship and creating disconnect in a relationship, because we really get into this doing mentality. There's so much to be done. We're tired, that we're not investing time in ourselves to make ourselves feel good and feminine. And, you know, maybe we've lost ourselves. Maybe we've lost connection with who we even are. That was certainly my experience. I think the most beautiful feminine qualities that I certainly appreciate most about myself is my flexibility, fun, and freedom. The 3 F's. So they're the things I cultivate in my life every day, just being free and fun and flexible, because I got to a point of such rigidness when I had kids. Like everything had to look a certain way, show up a certain way. Like it just wasn't flexible. Like it was painful for myself, let alone everyone around me. But that's not sexy, right? Like at all. And so the more I focused on cultivating those things, the more, you know, I was able to get that part of our relationship and sense of fun with myself and back in the relationship back. But when I coach women, I think the thing that we lose the most is our sense of fun when we have kids. And that's a huge, because I feel like men are most attracted to that if you think pre-kids, ladies, if you think back to your early 20s or whatever, when you're having lots of fun, it's probably easy for you to have men attracted to you, because you're just in this beautiful feminine state where you're just enjoying life.
Yep.
And then life gets hard, right? And we just lose that. We even lose our, some women lose their desire for that sexual side of themselves, or they just lose that side of themselves, I think, in a relationship.
And there's so many things that come to mind. And the first thing that I'm just going to go down now, disclaimer, I don't have kids, but I have worked with many women who do. But the first thought, and I've never had this thought before, but maybe there's a part that as a woman, once you've had kids, there's a self-judgment that things down there are not how they used to be. So it's about reconnecting with yourself in the current state, depending on how the birth was and everything like that, how everything was for yourself. If there is that disconnect and the stepping back from the sexual side of things and really want to be intimate, then ask yourself, like, is there now a new level of healing that is to take place with accepting your body for how it is?
You just reminded me, actually, because I had the most perfect first birth. Perfect. And so nothing changed for me and my relationship. And, you know, there was a bit of readjusting with the baby, obviously, but, you know, that relationship was always very healthy in that space. And there was nothing for me to heal physically or emotionally from. And then I had still a healthy birth, but much more traumatic. And physically it was more traumatic. Emotionally it was more traumatic. And then now we've got 2 babies in the mix, which is a whole different dynamic in terms of having time and space for each other. And we're also into attachment parenting, so the kids were always around. And it was that second birth that I really understood how women can really disconnect from that part. And a year in, 2 things happened. A year in, it just wasn't okay for me to continue like that, because sex is something that I highly value, and that I don't believe, ladies, that you can have a healthy relationship without having that side be fulfilling for both partners. So that was always a high priority for us, and it was the first time in our entire relationship where it wasn't on track, and that was not okay with me. But there was this, physically I had healed, but mentally not. I was so disconnected and scared, and it was all mental. And I found this book, and you just reminded me of it. It's called, and maybe you'd like to read it too, seeing you coach women, but it's called The Biography of the Vagina. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, by Naomi Wolf. It fucking healed me mentally, that book. Like within a week, it just really helped me process and see things clearly, and it really changed the game. And then the other thing, which I was sharing with you, that we did, so it was a year in, because we're creatures of habit. So the more you don't have sex, the more you don't have sex.
Absolutely.
And then the gap gets wider. But it happens in reverse as well. The more you have sex, the more you want to have sex. If it's good, maybe if it's not good.
Well, this is true.
I just thought, well, if it's really bad, maybe not.
Disclaimer in the bottom.
Hopefully, if you're married, you know each other and it's good. But so what we did coming into the new year is we made this commitment to have sex every single day as a New Year's resolution. We thought, should we do it for the year? And we're like, no, that's too much of an expectation. Let's start with a month. It's like, maybe not achievable. So we'll do it for the month. And we shared this, all of our friends were really excited, because when we shared it with them, they were all like, yeah, let's do it too. But it completely brought everything back into alignment, because we just got back into the habit, and we created space and routine for it. And, you know, every day was different. Sometimes it's about, we've literally got 2 minutes, and other days you have more time and you set yourself up for success, right? But the point is, you have to bring consciousness to this area of your relationship. Those 2 things changed the game for me. So if you're a woman who's feeling really disconnected, you have to self-resource yourself with that. You have to find mentors, coaches, books, podcasts, whatever you need to heal, because I think it's the mental trauma that usually, not for all women, but usually that's the thing that is lasting. It's not the physical trauma after birth. Absolutely.
And recently, in the last couple of weeks, I was doing a photo shoot with a lady who's just launched a new hypnobirthing business in Dubbo. And now, I didn't understand the benefits of hypnobirthing or anything like that until I had a conversation with her. She's a midwife, has been for 10 years or something like this, has been in the medical system. And some of the things that she was sharing with me, and I think this is really, really beneficial and key to express with your partner as well, especially if it is coming back to developing that intimacy. If there's some, if things aren't as tight and as, you know, how they were before, because he is going to be trying to work out like what's wrong with me and all of this, but understanding and explaining how that birth in especially hospitals can be a very violating process for a woman. Like if there's complications and all of a sudden there's forceps coming out and it's like all of a sudden, yes, you know, going into this, you're having a baby, you understand the process, you understand all of that, but it never sets you up for the point of if there's a complication and they need to be doing something, they're doing that to your body.
Yeah.
And yes, you've given them consent, but at the same time,
sometimes it's not consented either.
Well, exactly true, because maybe there's health complications and stuff like that. But it's also just being able to really understand it from your side of things, because yes, it may be, as said, you know what you're going in for to some degree. But if something takes place, all of a sudden, over and above anything that's ever gone on down there for yourself, well, then all of a sudden you feel violated and everything like this, and that's going to have you wanting to shut off from allowing your partner back in that space.
And that's where you know, coming back to conscious relationships, just being in communication with each other,
massively
working on that together. And there's so many. Even just physically things a man can do, different practices, like one that you might like to Google. I don't know if we'll get into it, but there's one called Omming. Have you heard about that?
I haven't.
Very healing for a woman. It's a man just being present to, there's no objective for a woman to climax, but it's entirely about the woman, and it just helps the woman surrender and open and overcome trauma physically. And so, and again, it's just getting back into that habit and practice of being seen and touched and opening up in a way that's very soft and gentle with no outcome for either party to reach anything. So that's called Omming. You can YouTube it. But you can't do that without conscious communication and connection.
No, absolutely. Because, you know, from whilst, as I said, I don't have kids or anything like that, but even just as a guy, I'm like, what do you mean it's violating for the woman? Like, it's like birth. It's like, that's just what it is.
Because a man is penetrating, a woman is receiving, and that's a very, that polarizing energy.
And the man's never going to understand like how it was for you through childbirth. So having that space to communicate with him, look, this is how I actually felt, you know, instead of trying to downplay it, like bring it to the surface and go, you know, this was the experience that I had through childbirth. Like I felt this, I felt that, and, you know.
And let's work on it together.
100%.
Healing it together. And
absolutely.
and I think, it's a beautiful healing when you can do it together. When you have a man that you can trust, who sees you, who wants to help in your healing. Hopefully you have that trust and that space or that opportunity to create it. Maybe you haven't had that in your relationship prior, but maybe this is a time, this is a way that you can start to have conscious communication together. And
absolutely. And if you don't have that, then find somebody that you can actually lean into. And whether it's
that's the point I'm at in my life now. I'm all about working it out and growing together and all of that. But I just feel like I'm in a space in my life now where I'm very clear that that's just top priority, to have a partner who wants to be in that kind of relationship. And I think I'm speaking for women here, but I think a lot of women get to kind of my age where they desire that, they're ready for something deeper. And
absolutely.
How would you inspire a man, if you're wanting to make it work where you are, to want to go deeper?
First thought that comes to mind is that men need to feel pain. Now, be that you may also be putting your relationship on the line, but you've got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's like really stepping back and letting him know and see what's really on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, maybe that is, if the sex is there, but something else not there, it's like pulling that back.
Mm-hmm.
And having the man actually feel the pain, because men are not going to be that intuitive when it comes to working these things out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need to fall down multiple times. We need to go, oh, wait, that hurts. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And from that place, then it goes to a point of being able to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where that's at, how to fast track that process, all of these things, I would say don't put any expectations on it either.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
sometimes, and the other thing is working out what's most important to you, because every
yes.
partner is going to come with their challenges and values differences. I think you're lucky to be in a relationship if you've got 20% of your values in alignment. You're going to have a lot of differences, no matter how alike you are. And it's asking yourself what's most important and what can you live with.
Yeah.
And what can't you live with.
Yeah.
Because don't be deluded to think that the grass is going to be greener, because you're going to enter a new relationship and your shit is going to follow you, and there's going to be values differences and communication challenges wherever you go. But it's deciding, I think, what is most important to you, what can you live with, what can't you.
Yeah. And I would also invite in there, like the other words that are flowing through my head right now that gets said very often is a case of wanting to make it work for the kids. Like, I get it. I understand why you want to.
I couldn't think of anything more depressing than being in a relationship because of kids and not for my own.
Yeah, it's like you want to try and role model a healthy relationship to your kids, but yet you're not happy in it. And I get it. Separating might cause a lot of disruption to the household and everything like that. But eventually what you're portraying to your kids and what you're teaching them is to really honor themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the start, maybe it is, let's try and work this out for the kids. Let's see if we can do this. But if your truth deep down is like, you know what, I hate this guy, I resent him, you know, all of this, I knew walking down the aisle was never the right guy, I shouldn't have done it, or whatever it might be, well then you've got to listen to your truth. And
you only get to live once. Why would you not want to live in a state of love, whether that's self-love and you're living on your, like right now, I've had a state of joy and love this year, you know, in the single life. Or whether that's in partnership, finding that one true love.
And I guess from there it comes back to not believing that it's possible for you. Or believing that if I'm a single mum that I can't be successful. Or believing that society is going to look down upon me because I'm separated, or whatever it might be. And the thing that I always say with those that I work with is look for the evidence outside of you. If your family in your upbringing can't show you that evidence, look for it from somebody else. Like, you're an amazing example for being successful as a single mom. Yeah, okay, you may have built a lot of it while you're in a relationship, but you are still maintaining it, you are still building it, you are still growing it, and still showing up. Like, there's no...
If anything, it's given me more reason and fuel to get up and make stuff happen in life. Absolutely. It hasn't been as scary as I thought it was going to be. I feel like if we had to summarize the foundation of every single thing that we just spoke about, which was a lot of different topics,
what was it?
It comes back to self-love.
Yeah.
When you value yourself, you walk away from the wrong relationship. When you value yourself, you don't enter the wrong relationships. When you value yourself, you get fulfilling. You know how to find fulfillment in your sexual interactions. When you value yourself, what else did we talk about? Everything comes back to loving yourself first. You show up better and you communicate better. When you're accepting of your own shit, you stop judging the other person's stuff.
And I'm glad that you said accepting, because I think that is self-love. Self-acceptance is the key to self-love. Taking ownership and accepting, it's probably more accepting, taking ownership, self-love. Yeah, definitely.
I feel like every call comes back to that self-acceptance, ladies. It's one of the greatest challenges I feel like women face today.
And I think that's also because, and I'm mindful that, you know, we could talk forever, but I want to share this part in here because we're talking about self-acceptance and self-love. One of the ladies that I worked with, she struggled to accept. And she'd done things in her past that she was judging herself for. And the reason that she struggled to accept those events in her life is because she was looking at that event. You know, the message that she sent to a friend that probably shouldn't have been sent, or whatever it might be. Self-acceptance and the way that we can accept these small moments in time that we may judge ourselves for is by looking at the full picture. It's how did you wake up that day? Did you have a full 8 hours sleep? Did you have a breakfast? Did you have this? And when you start to see, you know, what are the stresses you are under, you know, in every single moment, we're doing the absolute best that we can. And in hindsight, we look back and go, we should have done better. But yet we're looking back at just that moment. We're looking at that one conversation and forgetting about what else was going on in life. Maybe there was an argument that you had that morning or something like this. So when you can really,
and habits and frameworks that develop over time.
Totally. So looking at that full picture starts to allow self-acceptance to be an easier exercise, and being able to then get to that self-love.
And guilt and shame, you know, they're just so unresourceful and selfish. Guilt is actually a selfish emotion, because it helps you feel better about yourself if you feel guilty, right? But what was I going to say? One of the most resourceful questions you can ask yourself is, what is the best right action I can make now? So rather than being stuck, like what, and you might not know what all the pieces are to make up for or to recover or to move forward, but what's the next right action that I can make? Because the past is the past. It doesn't even exist anymore. You're just living in delusions when you stay stuck there, really. Right? The future doesn't exist. Right now is what exists.
The past is just that data to be able to make that next right choice.
Beautiful. Well, I think we're up past our hour. Always goes so quick when we're chatting. There's so many different things come up that we can talk about. But maybe what you guys can do is, if you'd love to have Brett back and you want some specific relationships, you know, topics discussed, then let us know in the comments or reach out. I know you've got a group. Have you got a group? Or how can people, what's the best way people can follow you?
I do have a Facebook group. I don't know if it's searchable, but I guess the best one that aligns with what we're talking about here, the women's relationship side of things, is on Instagram or Facebook, or the website. It's all the same name, Life with Options. And ultimately, Life with Options means freedom within. And so that's probably the easiest one, Life with Options on Instagram or Facebook. And it might bring up the group, which is Life with Options Women's Group, whatever it is.
We can add some links and things anyway.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time and your fun chats. Thank you everyone for joining us. Amber McQuitty, I'm going to send out a copy of this book. So if you can send me your details, thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate when you share and you tag us so that we can help more people. And hopefully you'll come back and join us again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a lot of fun. I really appreciate being able to share and speak this to a wider audience. So I really appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you. Have an amazing day, guys, and we'll see you again next week.
See ya.
Bye.